Yesterday, I actually spoke on the impact of the economy and poverty on the ease of doing business. If you look at the ease of doing business report, Nigeria moved up, right? 24 points from 169 to 125. And we were celebrating that, right? But I think government is failing to look at other factors that will actually determine the ease of doing business in future. And that two of those factors are basically the economy, our economic model, and second, the increasing poverty. Now, in 2017, the World Bank conducted a survey on what CEOs of multinational companies really want in an economy. And the first thing they actually pointed out was political stability and security. Now, political stability and security was foremost. Now, when we did our research, we found out that the increasing poverty, and I must tell you, on an average, we have 8,000 people being added to extreme poverty every day in Nigeria. Let me take you back to your introductory speech. You said the NBS released the GDP, right? GDP, good. Yep. Now, how can an economy grow when people are being added to poverty? 8,000 people are being added to extreme poverty every day. What you need to look at, what makes up your GDP? There are 5 factors that make up your GDP: consumer spending, investment, government spending, import and export. Consumer spending alone is 2/3 of your GDP, 66.6%. Now, you have 8,000 people being added to extreme poverty every day. What are you doing? You're reducing consumer spending in the economy. So that poverty is what Nigeria needs to address. And then we also looked at other factors. We looked at the Global Peace Index. We looked at TI, that's Transparency International rating. Now, what we found out was that there's a direct correlation between poverty and the Global Peace Index. There's a direct correlation between poverty and the TI rating. And there's also a direct correlation between poverty and the ease of doing business. Why? Because if you look at the conflict zones, right, the countries that are included in the conflict zones are the countries that have the highest rate of poverty in the world. Okay. Now, when you have conflicts, what happens? There's a lot that will be reduced in the economy. And part of it is that you have increased corruption. People start to compromise. Poverty leads to corruption. Corruption reinforces poverty.
So are you saying that the policies of the government right now, especially the ERGP, which is meant to, the blueprint to drive economic growth, are you saying that we're not on the right path? And we need to go back to the drawing table from a policy perspective?
I looked at the Economic Recovery Development Plan, right? One of the key factors in that plan was to increase human capital, right? Now, the 2018 budget for education is 2.1 billion. If you go back to 1980, when we had 73 million people as population, the budget for education that year was 2.028 billion. As of 2018, 198 million people, you're still spending 2.1 billion. Now, you have a goal. Your aims and objectives must align for you to be able to achieve your goals. So if you're spending 2.1 billion in education on human capital development in 2018, obviously your aims and objectives don't align with your goals.
Will the ERGP work from where you stand?
It will not work, and I'm going to prove it to anybody that is ready to debate the topic. In 1981, we had a GDP of 61 billion, right? By year 2000, from 1981 to year 2000, our GDP reduced. In year 2000 to 28 billion at some point. Then it started increasing again, getting to 46.4 billion in 1980. Between that time, we added 43.9 million people to poverty. But the interesting thing is this. Between year 2000 and 2014, the economy exploded by 1,125%.
Well, you know, we're in different economic times now. I mean, government revenues are based on how much comes in from oil. I mean, good for us.
I'm trying to make a point. I'm trying to make a point here. Between year 2000 and 2014, our economy exploded from a GDP of 46.4 billion in 2000 to 568.5 billion in 2014. Yet, we had 44 million people added to poverty. All these things I'm saying, China recorded over 2,000 increase in growth. They reduced poverty by almost 800 million people. Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, every one of those countries, right, recorded increase in GDP growth. They were able to reduce poverty. But we increased we recorded increase, right, in GDP, but we added to poverty. So something is wrong with our economic.
So what do you recommend? What is it that we need to do? What are we not doing right?
Good. Now, we run an expense economy. And when I say an expense economy, you look at our budget, our budget is an expense budget, right? Your investment brings you wealth, not expense. Once your expense supersedes your investment, you're basically getting poorer.
So how do we move away now? Your research obviously points at the gap between policy and what obtains with poverty in reality. So how do we move to actually achieving sustainable development?
Good. If you look at the definition, right, let me bring it up. You see, sustainable development, right, is basically an economic development or economic model, right, that is built not on the depletion of minerals. You understand? Now, we extract mineral resources, we sell them, and then use them to offset our expense without investments. Your investments brings you what? Wealth. Now, we have surveyed over 150 countries, comparing their economic model to that of Nigeria. And one thing stands out of all the progressive countries invest in human capital development. Most of them, when they extract mineral resources, majority of what they achieve, right, from the sales of mineral resources goes into developing the people. Nigeria does not develop its people. And that's why we are going into extreme poverty, and also poverty is increasing.
Roman,